I just wanna get effed up and dance. This is our only chance. Happiness is fleeting. This feeling's way too good to last. Get effed up and dance. No future.
This man needs no introduction. This is Justin Warfield. He's a musician, a producer, songwriter, creator, prolific band member, solo artist, all the things. Known very well for a band called She Wants Revenge. And she does want revenge. No, she doesn't want revenge against you.
No.
Who wants revenge?
How'd
that name
heard that question
come
ever.
up?
The name came up because my bandmate Adam and I were sitting like at his house making music, and we'd only made a couple of songs. This is now 20 years ago, which is so crazy. And we were sitting there, and he's like, "We should like do this for real." Like, I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "We should like make this like a band." I'm like, "Cool." He's like, "We should come up with a name." And he goes, something like feminine, like girl revenge. And I was like, "What about She Wants Revenge?"
I love it.
It was literally that. It was probably a faster conversation than I told it.
Yeah. Well, sorry to ask you.
So I wrote it down on the desk. Oh, it was at my house because I tagged the desk, and I was like, "Yeah, it looks good."
The end. And
The
there
end.
you have it.
Yeah.
And that's the show.
It's been really nice. Holly. Thank
It's been
you for
nice.
having me.
Nice having you. So Justin and I have known each other for 17 years probably.
No.
No?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I was like 22 when I met you. More?
Really?
18 years? 23? I don't know. Whatever.
Something like that.
We've known each other for a fuck of a long time.
I'm going to say that it was 2005.
Yeah. So I was 22.
There you go.
So that's
I was not.
19 years. But I will say, after all these years,
Yeah.
we've been friends, we've worked together.
Yeah.
You've taken my band on like a West Coast jaunt with your band.
Fun.
You've been a great supporter, but I don't know you that well.
I know.
So you're like an international man of mystery.
Elusive.
So I figured I'd invite you on
Yeah.
so I could just really get to know you
Okay.
in public,
There
on
you go.
camera, because that's how we do it here
We
in
do
Hollywood.
That's how we really do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to thank you for being like such a good friend and supporter over the years.
Oh, thank you.
And I was thinking about you are a great supporter of women in the music industry.
Yeah, that's something I take super serious.
Yeah.
Like very serious, especially because like in Los Angeles, I feel the predatory nature of the music industry is akin to like, a Greyhound stop where like, a girl gets off the bus like with a backpack and like, a bunch of dreams, and like people descend on her like, "Yo, I'll produce you, like I'll write for you, like we should do this," or like "You're amazing." And that doesn't just happen like sexually, but also I feel like financially. There's like a whole industry that's super predatory that finds people that have these hopes and dreams and like is like, I can, like, this is the carrot being dangled. And so for me, growing up in the industry and seeing like, the weird power balances and just the way it was such a boys' club, when I got to a point to where I was able to help other people, it just so happened that women started coming to me. And so I made it a practice to let them know straight away, like, hey, like, I'm like your brother. Like, I'm like, like this is like a homie shit. And so like, I just became like that person. And also because like, it's like the whole, like, if the door opens for you, you have to like hold it open for others, I feel.
Yeah.
And it's tough for women in the music industry. I mean, it's tough for women everywhere, like in Hollywood, acting, everything. It's like, it's so like, it's just not fair. Like, the way things are, that a man can be like sort of dashing and like George Clooney gray, but like if it's a woman, like she might not be on the call sheet, right? Like she might not be on the list for casting. So when it comes to the music side, for me, I'm like, I just want to be able to make music with women, help women find their voice, like anybody. Like it could be a dude, it could be anybody, like, but it just so happens that like there's like 3 or 4 women who I've worked with as an executive producer, as a producer, as like a big brother homie, as somebody that helps them basically speak for themselves.
Yeah. You have always been like a really safe person in this town. And I have met a lot of people and a lot of dudes. And I will say you are one of the few that has a very, very good record. And
we actually have a personal story about that too. Because when I met you,
that was my next question. Do you remember how we met?
I totally
Because I
remember.
actually
We should have had Tim Nordwind here.
don't
This is crossover.
fully remember. Okay.
I do.
Let's hear
This
it.
could have been a crossover episode. So we met at the Roosevelt Hotel.
Okay.
So if you go back and watch and listen to the Tim Nordwind, one of the sweetest humans on the planet, that episode,
Shout out Tim.
there is a lot of crossover there. We met at the HollyWould Roosevelt. We actually met because of the gentleman who you were there with, who is the homie who you'd go travel with and hang.
Yes, he's mad at me right now.
He who shall not be named.
He shall not be named.
Who I totally love. But I met you with him and we hung out. And then I remember you said something like about like, I think you actually had a CD because that's how long ago it was.
Yes, I probably was like carrying CDs in my bag.
I think you were. And you handed and you were like, yo, like it's you like you definitely had been drinking. And I was like sober. and at one point you said, you were like, yeah, like I'm looking for a producer, maybe. And I was just like, yeah, like, no. But it's because like we were at a club, like we were flirting, we were hanging out. So like I just have a real line where I'm just like, yeah no, like
yeah.
there's definitely lots of people you can meet who will make music with you.
And then we did end up working together many years later.
Right.
On
Under
Hand
totally
of God.
different. Well, not just, that was amazing, but not just that. Also with Child.
Yeah.
Which I found like a text thread where I was like looking for some like search word to find like something in my like iPhone. And I just was typing in and a like super old conversation came up. And it was about the recording sessions where like I came in and like was sort of just like giving ideas and guidance and notes when you were working on that stuff. And it was something about like, Holly loves the tunes and what you did. She like put some pianos on it or whatever. And I was like, cool. And I was like, oh, that was fun. And it was literally like 2 days ago. So it really brought me full circle because I forgot that we did that stuff.
I know. I really was like thinking about our long friendship and like how much we actually have done together and collaborated over the years.
When do you think you met Justin?
I mean, I believe that story at the Roosevelt. That makes sense. I mean,
bungalow.
I kind of remember like just the time, like that time and knowing you and seeing you around. And it was actually like right before She Wants Revenge, like blew the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because I remember like knowing you and then all of a sudden you were like in major. And I also remember you were sober and I was super not.
Yeah.
And
most
being
people
like,
weren't,
ooh, like scared to hang out with somebody
Totally.
who is sober. How long have you been sober now?
This month it'll be 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty
Congratulations.
crazy. Thank you.
Wait, this is February is my birthday too.
Yeah.
February 22nd.
Is that Sobes or California sober?
California sobs. It's working for me, okay?
Whatever
it's
works
working.
for you. It looks good on you. You're doing so good that whatever you're doing, I like seriously.
Thank you.
But yeah, like, you know, I just feel like, you know, because in watching and listening to your podcast and what you all do and thinking about this town, I was like, oh man, like I hate talking about Hollywood, like, because I'm from here, you know? And I was like, what is that conversation? And organically this comes up and it's like, I believe that you never know why someone comes into your life, right? You never know that if like you meet somebody, you may think that it's for work and it ends up that you help them in some other way or they help you. And if you truly, this is going to sound so like whatever, like, so like new age, but like if you really believe that like the purpose of life, which I do, is to give and receive love and just to like experience relationships with other people and just leave a positive impact and do more good than harm, then like it's that thing where people say like some award show, somebody was like saying something the other day. Oh, it was that comedian and that woman who's so amazing on The Bear. In her acceptance speech, she said, Thank you to all the assistants of the agents who like deal with my long emails, my crazy emails. And like, I always believe that like you never know who you meet in your life, how they're going to affect your life. So you just got to be kind and cool. And so the fact that we like met like when I was probably like, I was in that very like Cobra Snake phase of like American Apparel underwear with like boots walking around like the Roosevelt, like it was so bad, you know, like the indie sleaze of it all, right?
Yeah.
And then we meet, and then all these years later, and making music and reading your writing and being able to be an early person that's like, yo, like you're an amazing writer. Like this is your thing. Like you were trying to do this other stuff, but this is your jam. And so,
Justin,
you're a dope writer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, we're supposed to be talking about you.
I don't like talking about me.
I know. I love how you keep turning this around.
Yeah. It's your pod.
I want to okay. I know you don't want to talk about HollyWould, but I only just recently found out. I guess maybe I didn't know this. I don't know if I knew this. Your dad is in the industry.
Yeah.
What is your dad?
Well, he's not. Well, he's in a industry. Yeah. Like, so like I'm not a Nepo baby, but I'm pretty Nep adjacent.
Because I'm a Nepo baby.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I thought maybe we could be in the club together.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm probably like, let's put it this way. Like, if you like are from like Idaho or like whatever, and you like come to LA and you're like, how do I make it? And you're like a screenwriter at like Starbucks with their laptop open, or whether you're like running around with your modeling book, you're like your headshot, like then for sure I would be considered a Nepo baby. But by the standards of the world I grew up in, like they're like, your family's not famous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I grew up in a crazy world.
What is the world?
My dad is from South Central Los Angeles. My mom's from Brooklyn, New York. They both ended up in Los Angeles. Well, they ended up at LA Valley College in the 60s as two hippies that met. They hooked up, started dating, got an apartment in Hollywood, up above the former 101 Cafe and the Clark Street Diner up Vista Del Mar. And that street was called Hippie Hill. And it was just like everybody like would just go from house to house, like listening to like Joni Mitchell records and like smoking weed. And it was just like, you know, it was 67, Summer of Love. And they would like go see Santana or Janis Joplin at the Bowl and like, you know, do acid. And like, it was like that.
So fun.
And so he wanted to be an actor, right? And he was a theater guy because his dad was a theater guy. And then he ended up a tour guide at Universal Studios Tour. And then somebody was like, when he decided to have a kid, they were like, you kind of need a real job. And he had done like a couple of like movies, one movie, like this amazing exploitation movie called The Pink Angels about a gay hardcore 1% motorcycle gang that encounters some really serious bikers on the way to a drag ball. Real true story.
Oh, wow.
And
I need to see that.
It's epic.
Yeah.
It's epic. I have the one sheet posters and everything, and it's incredible. And so he was like an actor, and then he did a bunch of like black television in the 70s, but like there wasn't a lot of space for black actors in the 70s. You had like 2 or 3 roles you could play. And so he played like a Black Panther on one TV show, and he played a couple of other roles. And then they were like, let's have a kid. He's like, I need a real job. So somebody was like, hey, I'll get you a job in the mailroom of the music industry. Like there's this record company putting out this new artist, Barry White, blah, blah, blah. So he worked in the mailroom, and then Barry White was like, you seem cool. You want to help me promote my record? And then he promoted Barry White's first records. And then like he went on to just have a 25 to 30 year career in the music industry doing what at the time, what we called black radio promotions. So Luther Vandross, Tina Marie, Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind & Fire, like all of the sort of greats of that era. And so I had a lot of access to that kind of world.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. Which is crazy. But if I like look at the Nepo baby scale.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, yes, I'm a Nepo baby, but then I also like grew up in Minnesota. So it sort of like cancels out some of it.
Or maybe it makes you super Nepo baby because in Minnesota there aren't other Nepo babies.
Well, that always was weird. I was always like mad at my parents. Like, why do we live here? I felt like such an outcast.
Yeah.
Like everybody at school wanted to come over to just meet my dad. I was like
Really?
on
That's so cool.
display. I was like modeling and shit. And it was just weird. It was unheard of, everything I was doing. So
Read the Substack.
I always thought it would have been better to grow up here.
I don't know. I think it gives you a unique perspective for sure.
Did you like growing up here?
Yeah, I can't imagine having grown up any other place. I only really function on the coast in a very sort of Woody Allen way. I know you're not supposed to talk about it now, but whatever. So I lived in London for years, and I did a little short spell when I was living in New York with, Jamie.
Yeah.
When we lived together in New York. And but I'm like a total LA baby. I grew up in the Valley, which is a little bit different because like so many of my friends were like very famous sons and daughters of, and that wasn't how I grew up. That's like my like later teenage years. So like it's interesting that my formative years were in the Valley, and it was a very like idyllic suburban Valley setting. Mm-hmm. It was like, fucking Brady Bunch. I literally grew up like a couple of like, quarter of a mile from the Brady Bunch house.
The actual Brady Bunch the TV
house.
family.
Yeah, like Studio City. Yeah. So like I grew up in like a Studio City suburb of like mostly like working class, families. And it wasn't until I was about 14 or 15 that like I became a total Hollywood brat. And like because I'm 50, that was the time of like Corey Haim, Corey Feldman. Like,
so you were like running around with the Coreys.
No. but like real talk, like when I was 12, I would have been stoked to have hung out with Corey Haim.
Who were you running? What were you doing that was like Hollywood brat?
Well, my first like exposure to Hollywood was like come over to like Hollywood Boulevard because there was a bunch of music magazines, and my dad would bring me over here and to radio stations in Hollywood. And like K-Day was this radio station that like really first started playing hip hop.
I remember K-Day.
Yeah. And so that was in Echo Park. And so I would come over the hill, come to Hollywood. But once I like started running around with Hollywood kids, it was like mostly people that lived over like Bel Air or like on the West Side, and some people that lived in Hollywood. And we would just like run wild. There was this teen club that this person started. This is so dark. There was a teen club for kids that like basically made for like child actors to go so that like they could have a safe place and, like, where they could get in, right? But also like looking back, it's pretty chicken hockey.
Yeah.
So like it was called Alfie Soda Pop Club or Alfie Soda Club, right? Okay. And it was sponsored by New York Seltzer because you couldn't drink, right?
Yeah.
So it was like in all those Teen Beat magazines and everything, which I don't know because I never had any, but people would tell me and show me. And so it was like all the teen actors of the day would go there. And it was like, we would just go because like they would let us get in the booth and like put on records and like rap and like hang out and dance. And that was a place to meet girls when I was 15. And so like going to first clubs at 15 is pretty Hollywood baby. And then the transition to like Bold House clubs and everything that happened at a very early age. So did I like growing up in LA? Absolutely. But I'm really glad that I had a suburban grounding in the Valley and that experience. And also like where else could I have a grandparent that like lives in South Central by the Coliseum and also a grandparent that has a condo in Malibu and bounce between both worlds. And so my entire being is sort of a very mixed, very, very Angelino trip.
Yeah, that's very LA.
Yeah.
And so you grew up like seeing fame and famous people. How do you feel about fame? What do you think about celebrity?
That's a pretty deep question. Last night I was talking about somebody with a dear friend at this party we threw. And I said, I think that fame just makes you more of who you are.
Interesting.
And so that's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
I think that if you have a grounding and you know who you are, that I don't know, like for me, I know like a lot of people grow up and they like want to be famous. I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to be like the people that I admired.
Right.
And they happened to be famous, right?
Right.
So at one point that might have been, Jimi Hendrix or Jim Morrison, or that might have been, Gus Van Sant, or that might have been John Taylor from Duran Duran or Prince or Madonna. Like it wasn't the lifestyle or the creature comforts afforded them by being celebrities or famous. It was the fact that they were doing something of value and worth that impacted the culture and was feeding me as a kid. Run DMC, like the Beastie Boys. If those people didn't come into my life, I just don't know where I would be. So for me, like somebody said, Reese, like I have a son, like, you know, like Bowie.
Yeah.
So as a dad, as a father of a 16-year-old, you know, teenager who's a filmmaking student, I joke with him. I'm like, you're the real Nepo baby. Because like my dad worked behind the scenes. And so I would go to Barry White's house in Encino or Tarzana or whatever. And I would go to the like world premiere of Thriller and like hang out the Jackson crib with like all the Jacksons and be like, oh my God, Janet's so cute. And like, I had this crazy lifestyle, but my dad was like the dude who everybody loved who was behind the scenes. And the difference between that and like, even though I'm like a very, very, very minor public figure because of my band, I'm like, I think that I have more direct access. And so the great joy of my life now is being able to afford my son opportunities and experiences as a result of the things that I'm afforded because of the music that I put out and the things I've done, which has given me a platform or a voice or access so that like certain ropes open.
Yeah.
And as long as he maintains the incredible work ethic and humility that he has, then that's great to be like have a leg up. Like,
Yeah. Your kid is amazing.
thank you.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Bowie.
A lot of people are now. He's really like, honestly, like low key, it's weird when you're like, yo, like I wish I was this kid. Like he's just so much cooler.
So cool. Like the style, like
Yeah, it's
all of it.
crazy.
He's just smart. He's outgoing. He's just cool.
He has a job now.
He
It's crazy.
does.
Oh yeah, like it's nuts. But so like yeah, like I think that your and my sort of periphery to the Nepo baby thing is probably pretty similar and similar experiences. But the way I look at it is like, I don't know, it's just like, it's fun. Like
Yeah.
if you literally like, if you're a Teamster and you're in like New Jersey and like you're working a job and whatever, you know, unionized thing, like you're going to get your brother-in-law in the union faster than
Yeah.
some like mook that comes off the streets.
Yeah.
If you open a restaurant somewhere and your sister-in-law wants to be the host, you're going to look at them before you are some stranger.
Same with like
Nepotism is unavoidable.
doctors and
Everything.
all of it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of nepotism is like, you know, you grow up, you don't have anyone in your family or you don't know anyone directly who's famous and it seems really inaccessible.
Right.
But when you grow up in it, like you are like, oh, I can do that too. And I think that's the
huge.
biggest part of nepotism.
That's amazing. I've never thought about it like that because I know for a fact that everything in my life that I've achieved is because I never had a doubt that I could. Mm-hmm. Right. So whether
Same.
right.
Yeah.
So whether that's, you know, getting and staying sober, right? Seeing someone else do it and going like, oh, well, I could do that because there's a way, there's a path. If you do this, and if you do these steps, then these results will happen. And when I, you know, saw musicians like Prince like sit in a room and like make all the music on his own, or when I would hear anybody, I'm like, it's possible. And if you know somebody that does it, to your point, right, then you're like, oh, this. So yeah, growing up in the world that I grew up in, like my first producer was Quincy Jones the third. Like he goes by QD3. And he's Quincy Jones' son. And people are like, oh, like you must have had an amazing life growing up Quincy Jones' son. And he grew up in Sweden. He didn't grow up with his dad. He moved to LA and moved into like Bel Air with his dad when he was probably like 19. And so he learned how to hone his craft as a producer and musician and artist in his bedroom in Sweden. Like, and then he came here and doors opened for him, because he was dope and because of his dad. And so I don't know. It's interesting. I mean,
I mean, it can go both ways too. I know plenty of a rock star's child that is very crippled by.
Oh man, that must be tough.
By living under that shadow, or, you know, or just having like the endless trust fund that just kills so many people.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because I definitely grew up very, very middle class, and like, you know, I wasn't somebody who, I went to private schools, but like I was on like, you know, like a financial aid kid, and like I'm proud of that. You know what I mean? It's like my parents wanted me to go to good schools, but it didn't come without sacrifice or like help from my grandpa. So when people are like, "Where'd you go to school?" and I tell them, they're like, "Oh," and they roll their eyes, and I'm like, "Yo,
it's not like that. It's not like that. I swear."
I mean, it's half like that.
Was it always music for you? Was that always
No.
your? What else? Like, how did it?
Yeah,
how
I
did
didn't. I never wanted to be a musician.
What?
Yeah,
Okay, you back me up.
yeah.
Start at the beginning.
Yeah.
What was the plan?
My earliest desire was to be a filmmaker, and it still is. I'm just like a frustrated writer and director, like who's been stuck in a music career for 34 years.
Yeah.
No, so what happened is my mom, like my dad was making music, and my mom was like read everything. Like she was very literate, and like a lot of amazing books around, a lot of amazing movies. I mean, I remember like some of my first movie experiences were like, you know, Manhattan or Annie Hall or like Harold and Maude, and like, you know, it wasn't like Star Wars. And I mean, it was because I grew up in that era, but it was definitely independent film.
Never seen Star Wars.
You've never seen Star Wars?
I've never
That's
seen
so
Star
tight.
Wars.
That's
I'm disappointed.
amazing.
Everyone's gonna be really mad at me.
That's so dope.
I had to say it. I had to admit it.
Oh, no,
Okay,
that's
go on.
great.
Go on.
That's amazing. I've met somebody who said that before. That's also like a good party trick to break out.
I've never seen Star
Like
Wars.
I've never seen Star Wars. Like people are all, like the best party trick. That's the word. You immediately know the worst person is if they're like Beatles suck. Like if somebody talks shit
How
about
could
the Beatles
anybody actually say the Beatles suck?
because
That's
it's
just
like a contrarian party trick.
so boring.
So
Okay.
yeah, I just wanted to be a director. I just wanted to make films, and so I was going to go to film school. I was going to go to UCLA film school with my buddy. Like everything was like writing scripts. Like when I was like 14, I started writing spec scripts and like writing things. Like when I didn't go to college. I went to where my parents went, LA Valley College, for one semester, and I dropped out because I got a record deal. But like I remember for an English assignment, I wrote a sample spec episode of A Different World. If you remember that show.
I forgot what that is.
It was like Lisa Bonet's like main show that was like Cree Summer, and like it's one of the defining Black television shows of the 80s. It's like it is everything. Like it's just hard to describe.
Young.
Yeah, no, you're way too young. But like A Different World, like it's the cultural impact is massive. And so I wrote a spec episode just for my English class, and the premise actually was later used in an episode. No one saw it. It's just like I was tuned into like what that sort of
Yeah.
the storyline and the plot points. And so I started writing pretty early, and high school, just wanted to make film. I graduated from a very small high school. It was like mostly actors, and I had no desire to act. Like I hate being on camera, but I was like, I want to tell stories. I knew I was a writer very early on, and that was my first love. I knew I didn't want to just do novels. I knew it was going to be cinematic. So when I ended up making records, I started as a hip hop artist. I started doing that, putting out records, living in the hip hop world, and like, you know, from basically 89 through 92.
Did that start because of writing? Like,
Yeah, it did. I mean, I really
you
loved,
just were so into music?
I was so into music, and I just loved the lyricism of hip hop. And it was like my punk rock for my generation. And I was like, this is it. And so I was writing raps, and a friend of mine like found a piece of paper, scribbled on the bar at my parents' house. He's like, what's this? And he read it, and he's like, this is really dope. And he's like, you write this? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, can you rap it for me? And I did. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to bring you to my producer's house. And that was Quincy Jones's house.
Whoa.
And so when I was 15, before I could drive, 14 and 15, we started working together. And when I was 16, we put out for my first single. And so it all started from like just like the pen and writing and loving that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, this is cute, but like, I want to make movies.
Yeah, this is not what I'm really doing.
Yeah, no, it didn't feel like something, you know. And my dad was in the music industry, and so I was like, I don't want to do that.
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I was like into writing, and
Right.
like
You were into writing back then?
I was into writing.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna like go to school for journalism or something.
Do you have your writing
become
from
a
back
writer? I have some of it. I have some like really bad poetry,
Of course you do.
and you know,
Yeah.
I have a lot of like journal entries and stuff. I was always sort of like recording things, but I
that's
thought,
cool.
yeah, my dad's in the music industry.
Yeah.
Bleh, lame.
Yeah.
Like especially like pop and rock and stuff.
Mhm.
It's like maybe classical music was cool.
Yeah. Were you going to clubs like like to see shows?
Yeah, I started going to clubs to see shows when I was like 13, like 7th Street Entry, First Ave.
Oh my God, that's so epic.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
seeing like Space Hog.
Really?
And like tripping out and like being so obsessed.
Brooke was talking about
and in
Space
love
Hog the
with
other
them.
Brooke and Elliot were talking about Space Hog the other day, and I'm like, ew.
And then coming to LA and then meeting them and being like, oh my God.
See, that must be weird. See, that's something that I don't have. So because you're not from here, right? Meeting people who you admired, that was probably something that was like, whoa, like I'm standing next to this person and I'm having a conversation.
It was a little more exciting, but I still felt like not fully like impressed because I did meet people through my dad. And
Totally.
I would, he toured with like Sheryl Crow and there were
Yeah.
people around, big, Minnesota artists.
Yeah.
Prince.
Yeah.
I got to meet all those people.
You met Prince?
Yeah.
Far
A
out.
couple times.
He tried to pull a date that I was having dinner with at a nightclub once in the 90s.
Actually, I was at Teddy's
Mm-hmm.
in like, I don't know, 2007 or something. I was like dancing and this big guy comes up to me, a bodyguard.
Of course.
And he's like, hey, Prince wants to meet you.
Yeah.
And so he like brings me over and I like danced with Prince for a minute and it was really
That's
awkward. And then I was
incredible.
like, you
Bat
know, my
dance?
dad, Michael Bland plays in my dad's band, one of my dad's bands.
Whoa.
So then he sort of was like, ooh,
Yeah,
weirded out. I was like,
cool.
I met you when I was like 5.
Yeah, that's definitely going to kill the vibe.
Yeah, it killed the vibe.
Were you attracted to Prince?
No.
I wouldn't be either. Sorry. I love him though.
I love him, but like, I don't want to go there with like such a huge legend.
No, you got to aim lower.
Well, you've been there.
With a huge legend like that?
Maybe.
I don't know. I can't think of any.
Read the Substack.
Read the substance.
I don't know. Read my Substack tomorrow.
So I was at the Roxbury,
Yeah.
like Made Famous by Night at the Roxbury, and I was sitting there like one of the like prime booths, having dinner because like nobody knows, but they had like the best fried chicken in town at the time, and so I would go there. And I like brought this girl who I don't even remember, and it was like a first date, and like it was like I'm like 17, but like they gave me a table because I know the people who are in the club, and I'm like sitting there like flexing, and got this like older woman sitting with me, like hanging out, having dinner and drinks, and this guy comes over, he's like, "Excuse me," and he's like, "Prince would like you to join him at his table right there," and he didn't even look at me, just looked at her. And I was like,
At dinner, that's
dinner,
rough, man.
across the table from me. He was directly across. Prince was sitting there, and he's like, "Prince would like you to join him for dinner." Didn't even make eye contact with me. And I just did like, hey, tell him to go fuck himself.
You weren't like, go ahead.
No, I was like, I'm like,
Good for you.
yeah.
Yeah, fuck that.
You don't get to do that.
No way.
No.
We love you, Prince, but no.
No, I mean, but it was exciting.
Yeah.
Because I had a cutout of him on his purple motorcycle that I got from the local video store in North Hollywood. So I was like, yeah, I got to say no to Prince.
Yeah. And you're like, she's my girl.
Yeah. The girl is mine. So throw it back to Michael Jackson. But yeah, I don't know. It's all weird.
So, okay. So when She Wants Revenge,
Yeah.
like, just exploded,
Yeah.
did you feel famous? Like, did your life change
It was
in a
totally
huge
weird.
way?
It was super weird. Because I got a record deal when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was around, the proximity to like greatness and life-changing moments was insane. Like my teen years were like what the Woodstock generation had with like, the insane 60s artists. For me, it was like 1991, 1992, and I'm hanging out with like everyone that mattered in hip hop and friends with them, smoking and drinking with them, running around New York City. Like I was like Henry Hill and Goodfellas, and they let me into the Copacabana, and I was a kid hanging out with De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Black Sheep, Brand Nubian, everybody you can think of, Latifah, like anybody who mattered in that time, Boogie Down Productions, like everybody I knew and was around. And so I was known because I had a single out and it was on the radio. So like people knew me and accepted me in as one of their own. then I came back to LA and I was just like Justin from LA. And because the club scene is so prevalent, there's like the Far Side, House of Pain, all these Los Angeles groups, the Black Eyed Peas later before they became the Black Eyed Peas. Will is somebody who's an old friend who was like influenced by my rap. Like, and he told me that recently. I was like, that's crazy. And he's like, he actually said to me, he said, I knew it was possible when I heard you on the radio, which is, I'm like, dude, you could go to like the moon if you want. Like, you're like literally like backed by NASA. And he said that, so that's cool. But I had all this access, but it was like local, and it was like, you know what it's like in a small town. I always say LA is like a super small town.
Yes.
It's like a Midwest town because everybody knows everybody. And every time I see somebody I know them, I'm like, did we go to high school together? Did we date? Do I know you from like a 12-step room?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because everybody knows everybody. But when that song blew up after like, you know, a year plus of touring and grinding it out and doing that, it was crazy because we were opening up for Block Party where no one knew us. 2005, full peak, you know, Cobra Snake, Indie Sleaze, like the great, you know, American Apparel, like that era of just madness. And I was 30, I think, which is an interesting time and a change where your life sort of, you know, you're changing. You're like, somebody said to me the other day that 2 days ago, somebody said to me the most profound thing, I hope I don't mess this up. He said, when you turn 30, you're really just starting to work through all the bad shit that happened to you in your 20s. And I was like, whoa. Like, he didn't say it like in those words, but that was the gist of it.
Yeah.
And so when I turned 30, I was like, okay, like my life is getting good now and I'm making music that I like. Previous to that, I was like doing wardrobe and styling, and I was a stylist assistant and casting assistant. And I just like art department, just like total blue collar job guy. Obviously in a cool industry, but like punching a clock and like, oh, you took out this much from my paycheck, and like, you know, living in a little apartment like by myself and in the valley. And like I wrote a script and I was trying to make this movie, and our friend Yossi, you remember Yossi?
No.
You don't remember Yossi?
Sorry, Yossi.
Yossi's the person who commissioned the Shepard Fairey Obama poster, the Hope poster.
I mean, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah. So Yossi was like somebody that like campaigned for Obama, then later worked in the White House. But when I knew him, he was like a kid I met on Suicide Girls.
Yeah.
Like, who like, he was like, I'm a film producer. And I was like, cool. And he took my script out and we were making an indie movie. And I was just going to make this movie. And we had financiers and doing the whole dance around town. And I was going to make this movie. And then our music got in the hands of some people. We got offered a record deal. I had to go, wow. And so I was like, okay. And like, and that was my third record deal with She Wants Revenge. So I was like, okay, like I'll step up to the plate one more time. Like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Like I had already lived in London with a record deal. I'd already got signed to Warner Brothers through Quincy Jones when I was a kid. And I'm like, I mean, okay, cool. Like I'll put out some songs. They'll drop us in 2 years. I'll make my movie. Right? Like the cycle.
Totally.
And to then cut to 2006 and like walking down the street and literally like every day cars driving by and hearing my song was something that I wasn't really prepared for.
Yeah.
And it was so gratifying and it was so weird and it just felt like bonus round. It felt like this is cool because I thought I was pretty done and washed with music. So I was like, this is incredible.
It seems like there's something to that, like letting go of the expectations or the neediness or desperation where you're just like, whatever, I'll just see what happens. And that's usually when things hit. Yeah.
And from a song that I would have, you know, pulled off the record in favor of another one that I like that no one thought was going to be a hit. So what did it feel like? Like, because like, right around before, like by the time the record came out, I had already like met my wife and was in a serious relationship and was sober. And so I got to experience the recognizability or the small bit of fame or celebrity out of that through like in sort of a right-sized and healthy way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so the entire time that I've been known as She Wants Revenge, I've been married, like, and in a relationship. And so, and sober. So it's definitely a different experience than a lot of people who like, yo, you're the like, if you're the biggest band in your town and you're, you know, from Akron, it's like one thing. If you're the biggest band in LA and you're from Hollywood, that's crazy. And so like it was amazing, like doing the in-store at Amoeba Records where we signed records and performed. I mean, there was 2,000 people around the block, like all the way around like the ArcLight. And that was like the greatest feeling. Or like the fact that we started at the Dragonfly and then Cinespace and then the Silver Lake Lounge and then Spaceland and then the Troubadour and then the El Rey and then 2 nights at the Fonda, 2 nights at the Wiltern, Lollapalooza, headline the Greek or co-headline the Greek, and then headline the Outdoor Theater at Coachella. Like, for a dude that literally would be like in bands for years being like, okay, let's all put in our $20 for the rehearsal room with the broken air conditioner and you know what I mean? That smells like beer. And like, I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I really appreciated it. So like being at like the Grove or the Americana and having somebody come up and ask for an autograph or take a picture, it wasn't like I'm famous. It was like, I can't believe so many people know my music.
Yeah. You're just stoked. Yeah. I mean, also
It's
you're
still like that.
in your 20s or you're partying. It's you get that kind of success, you often die. So it's great when it
Totally.
happens to somebody who's a little older and has a little life under their belt and has found themselves in a more stable place. I definitely would have died if it had worked out for me the way I wanted in my 20s.
I think so too. Like I never thought I was going to make it to 27. Like I was
Same.
definitely arrogant enough to think that like being a J that I was going to enter that club.
What got you sober?
How
old were you?
I was 25 and I was and so then like 2 months later I turned 26. So really close to 26. And it was just like bad. And it had been bad for a long time. But I guess just like willingness and like you said about giving up, like once you give up like to fight for something that you want, like you often get it.
Yeah.
Like probably like that. I just gave up. I was like, I'm done. Like I was living in London and it was dark. I think the actual reason why I got sober is because I'm a really neurotic person. And even though I like can project a pretty laid back and cool sort of thing, like I am very, very, very confident. But I'm also deeply neurotic. And so I wasn't the type of drug addict who did so with reckless abandon and like, fuck it, fuck the world, it's all good.
I was such a...
I was
so
like
funny.
nervous and sketchy.
I wrote about that. Yeah. Like I'm on Molly and I'm still like worried about everything around me. Like I can't ever just relax into anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't experience that. I felt pretty fucking relaxed. I mean, although I'm too old, so we didn't call it Molly back then. But I never had that I don't care. Like I had actions and behaviors that definitely signaled I don't care if I live or die.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually did. And that's the sort of pull, right? A lot of people I know were like hope to die addicts. I wasn't. Like I was like super like, it was like Larry David with like an Altoids box full of drugs. Like it's like and it's just like this and that and like this and it's just. But like at one point I started to be like fearless. And that fearlessness is actually, I think, coupled with like a moment of clarity and some sort of grace allowed me to get sober and clean. But definitely being fearless scared the shit out of me because I was like, wait, now I feel like fuck it, where I never felt like fuck it. And that's terrifying because then I knew the consequences. And also like I went to the doctor and he's like, you're going to die. And I was like,
oh, wow.
And I got arrested in London. Like, and that was the first time I ever had a consequence. And I was like, wait, like I don't get caught. Like I get pulled over by LAPD and I got like a trunk full of this and that. And like I skate and I was like, I got arrested and I was like, wow, like this was not like on the bingo card, as people say. Yeah, like I was like, this is real. This doesn't happen to me. Like I get through everything. And I just stopped. I just got really sloppy.
Yeah.
You know, like the third act of a movie where like the guy gets caught. It's like, you know.
I've had those moments when I was like getting into heroin where I was like sort of saw myself from above, where I was like, even for you, this is too dark. You've crossed the line.
Do you consider yourself a dark person when you're in that place? When you say even for you, did you consider yourself a dark person then?
Yeah, I considered myself a dark person all the way until I was 35 and fell flat on my face and broke my face and
Wow.
really had to face the consequences of 20 years of like chaos.
20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 15 to 35.
See,
like,
my using
balls
wasn't that
to
long.
the wall.
I packed it into a much shorter time, and I did get sober young too. Right?
Yeah.
So
That's so lucky.
Yeah.
That you were able to.
I think
catch
it's more
yourself.
like I think it's more like 19 to 25, almost 26.
That's quick.
It's really quick, and it was really hard, and it was really scary. Actually, like we threw this club last night, I was talking to a friend, and he had like a blur button. He had like 100, but you know Morty. He had like 100 buttons on his jacket, but like one of them was blur, and I'm like, oh, you like blur? We started talking about Britpop, and he didn't know that I lived in London at the peak of that, and so we were recounting all those stories, and then it went into crazy, like, and he didn't really know my story, and he was just sort of like slack-jawed and like, holy shit, and it was like super fun and glamorous and epic until it was just super lonely and boring and scary and like mundane and bad and like, I don't know. But like the thing I really want to talk about is like how super awkward it is that there's a portion of this talk where I'm like, we're talking about being a safe space for women and how like cringe that feels to have said anything like that out loud. Like, it's just like, there's my neurosis on full display. Like, I'm like, this is super dope. We're having a great conversation. Like, you're like not like some dude that like is in the business of like helping women. Like it just sounds so dumb. Like, it's just so like.
No, but I'm the one that brought it up.
I know, but like,
I brought
it's
it
so
up
like.
because you really are. Like, I have met and worked with so many dudes in this industry. And I really was thinking about it the last couple of days, like sort of prepping for this conversation and being like, wait, Justin's like actually probably like the safest dude in the music industry that I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I've met a couple great ones, but it's not so good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
I know, and film's probably even worse. I guess it's just that like when you said that, I felt that's like the coolest thing that anybody could ever say to me. Like if somebody said, I love your music, or your music like got me through a hard time, or all these things that are really, that's like, that's not in my control.
Yeah.
If I write lyrics that like keep somebody like that help somebody get through a breakup or a death, I'm powerless over that. I just happen to write that. But I am, I do have the choice to live a certain way. And I do have a choice to behave a certain way. And so you saying it out loud, it just felt like really good because like we know how many creeps there are and how gnarly people are. And so like I don't wear it as a badge of honor, but I also, I just don't want people to be uncomfortable around me in any way, like whether it's my moodiness, which I'm like super moody and like have to work on like being the person that walks in the room and they're like, damn, like he's in a bad mood. Like, I don't, or whether, a 21-year-old girl is like, hey, like, here's what I want to do with my music and can you help me? For me, I'm not like, well, hey, like I'm the safe dude. Let me talk to you. I'm just like, my main thing and when I say safety is more like, every woman I've ever made music with has had experiences of men telling them how to make music or what their music should be like or what they should sing like, what they should write about, the kind of tracks they should have, the kind of band they should have, the way they should look,
what
the way
they
they should
should
dress,
wear.
everything.
Yeah, everything.
It's insane. So what I've tried to do is when I work with somebody, regardless of gender, is witness who they are and what they want to be and become and support that rather than impart my idea of that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's the cool part of working with young people is there's so much potential and there's so many people that are like, come on, kid, I got this. And especially like because I actually sit there and make music in a physical way as an engineer producer, there's so many times where like somebody in a studio goes, what are you doing? what is that you're doing? And they ask a technical question. And I've worked with so many people that are women who say, oh, when I usually ask something, people are like, don't worry about it. And like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, it's like a sit there and look pretty kind of thing. And like, I'm going to make your music. And so I appreciate you saying that. And I was obsessing over the fact that I was like, oh yeah. But I'm just not the dude hanging out the Greyhounds, like, you know, sitting on top of a caddy being like, hey, come here. You want to be famous? I'm like, try to be the opposite.
Right.
You know, in a town full of just.
Do you think things are. Sorry?
Just a 5-minute
5-minute warning? Oh, shit.
And
really?
it's Grammy.
I know.
Already? God, I was going to say, like, do you think
Chatterboxes.
things are changing? Like, do you think the younger generation is going to be cooler when it comes
For sure.
to this shit? I mean, you have a kid
Yeah.
that age. And
Mm-hmm.
and as far as even, like, drugs and alcohol, it seems like that stuff isn't cool anymore. Like, none of it. Or,
Okay, so
I don't know.
like,
Maybe that's just wishful
No,
thinking.
no,
Or
I
it's
think you're-
cooler to be clean.
I think that for my generation, there were no role models who just had their shit together. It was like, whether it's like Jeff Spicoli or Cheech and Chong, or whether it's like, you know, every artist that we saw who was just like, looked like a hard drinking, like Chrissy Hynde to me was like one of my rock gods.
Same.
She's the greatest.
The best.
She doesn't get enough shine.
Yeah.
Chrissy, the first 2 Pretenders records for sure changed my life.
Me too.
Like, she is one of the most amazing artists in the world, not like female artists. Like, she is
Artist.
so dope and she is so tough and so like, she's just like everything. She's like the spirit of rock and roll to me. And I'm absolutely obsessed with her. But like, she just looked like somebody who's tough, who could just like outdrink you at the bar. And like, we had these images and these idols, and now there's people like Tyler, the Creator, like, and like T is somebody who like is be like, yeah, like I don't do drugs and I don't drink. That shit is stupid.
Billie Eilish.
Billy's amazing.
Yeah.
And those are 2 people who I've had interactions with, and I've had like the pleasure of, you know, conversations or connectivity, right? So it's incredible that my kid and other kids out there have Billy as an example, because everything about her is incredibly positive, and just like she just does it all so right. Like, not only is she like one of the best like songwriters and singers of this generation, but she also like walks a tightrope like effortlessly, and Tyler too.
Yeah.
Tyler's the best example of what you said. When you see something close to you in proximity, you know it's possible. Tyler's a unicorn. Like, I've known him since he was a teenager, and I've watched what he's achieved, and I'm old enough to be his dad. And whenever I talk to him, I'm just like, I'm so impressed with you. Like, I can't believe I'm inspired by him. And I'm like, oh, well, I can do this too, because T does. And so I think kids nowadays, it's more like weed, shrooms, alcohol. I think that like, it's sad that we live in a world that like, I have like Narcan in the back of my car, you know, or that like we have to educate people about Fent and like test kits and stuff. And it's only going to get worse because it's invaded all street drugs. And like, I think that kids are getting better. But to your original point about, is it getting better in the sort of weird, predatory, creepy thing? Like, my generation didn't have accountability, right? My generation didn't have
Right.
bad behavior, like not only like patriarchal stuff, but like sort of creep behavior, right? Pushy behavior, attitudes, and not just actions. And like that misogyny was reinforced in every movie we saw.
Yeah.
Like
Celebrated.
every 80s movie is super like like the big movies. Like, you watch 16 Candles now, you're like, that's date rape.
Yeah.
And it's racist. It's racist. It's sexist. There's date rape. There's homophobia. It's insane. So the idea that now that anyone has accountability, whether it's for sexism, for racism, for for homophobia, for any of that stuff, the accountability is really good. And I think that the kids are in a good place because of it. I also think that there's nothing worse than like someone older like bemoaning cancel culture, because it's usually the person who's like probably needs to be canceled who's complaining about it.
Totally. Yeah.
But I do think
I've
that
been
like
having some funny experiences with some of those people lately.
Really?
Just like, oh, Holly, you're speaking out a lot about those times.
Right. And by the way, those are your experiences, that's your life, and you get to tell those stories. You get to write those Substacks and those books and those films or whatever and sit here and tell your stories. Absolutely.
So I'm so sad we have to wrap this up. When are you going to make your film?
So, yeah.
And what's going on? What's the latest? What's the new record?
Yeah.
When are you making your film?
So, She Wants Revenge is like this month finishing our new album. It's the first album we've done since 2011. So it's a long time coming.
That's amazing.
We've been touring all over the world, really, and we'll be doing some European dates. U.S. dates aren't really set right now. Working on the record. I'm working with a number of artists on the A&R, creative direction, label services, management side, and that's fun. I get to help artists because I have some amazing artists I get to work with right now. What else? And I am working on 2 films. In 2015, I wrote a film, and I was like, I'm really going to do this. Like, the band was like broken up, on hiatus, whatever. And I was like, I wrote a film, basically started casting for it, was like, I'm going to raise the money. A friend of mine was like, I have a fund. Let's make the movie. We started casting. We started moving forward. It was amazing. Then it got like more steam. And then I got signed with a big agency and got an amazing literary and like filmmaking agent. And then like, you know, like I had incredible actors attached and like all this stuff was going to happen. And like the typical indie movie development, like I have somebody from Moonlight attached to be my lead. Oh my God, they won the Oscar. This is amazing. Wait, like you won't do the movie unless I cast like Lily Rose Depp opposite, like, you know, just like the Hollywood politics kind of thing.
Yeah.
Up and down, but like I never like complain or bemoan, like, because I'm in the game and I'm doing it. And it's like, it's part of the process. It's like peaks and valleys. So I've actually dusted off the script for that film that was in like 5 years of development. And there's somebody who's interested in revisiting it. And so I'm doing a rewrite I'm really excited about. And I'm really glad that I'm doing it now because it's a teen comedy and it's a coming of age movie. And now that I actually have a real teenager, it's changed the way I see it. And so it's through fresh eyes. And I'm working on a second film right now, which is a sci-fi action comedy that is like super transgressive and a combination of all the things I've ever loved in my life. And I'm really excited about that. So busy.
Well, shit. You heard it here. Stay tuned for everything Justin Warfield.
Where can we
Is
find
that
him?
your Instagram handle?
Yeah, just I always go by my own name. Yeah, Justin Warfield. Oh, I'm also putting out a solo record. I forgot about that.
What?
Yeah, I kind of buried the
You are
lead.
busy.
Yeah, I recorded it during the pandemic.
Under your name?
Not under my name. It's called Forever Never Changes.
Amazing.
And
When is that coming out?
I think I'm going to put it out. I think I'm going to do the first single in like March or April.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear it.
I'm nervous.
Dude.
Not about the record, but I booked a show.
Can you say where?
Yeah, I'm gonna be playing Zebulon.
We're gonna go. We're all gonna go.
Everybody. Opening up for a friend of ours, incredible band called Escape Artist Lovers, who are doing a residency.
Oh yeah, I know them.
You know them.
I know them.
So
I love it.
I love them.
Okay.
And they're
I'll be
playing
there.
every Monday in March. And I was like, you gotta let me open up for you.
Oh my God! Fuck
so
yes, we're
I'm
all
so
gonna
nervous.
go.
Yeah.
Justin, I'm so grateful to you for coming on and
I
for
love this
being such a good
conversation.
friend. And I just adore you and thank you. The HollyWould Podcast is filmed in Los Angeles, California, and produced by Cristiana Ladki-Williams. We'll be back next month with a brand new one for you. Please follow, like, download, share, and don't forget to leave a review.